has been based on the science. We have been following the science, and I will be the first to say that this pandemic has been troubling for all of us, trying to stay in front of it, but for the most part is to try to make sure that our students, our staff, and our community is safe. So with that, we take a close look at the data, and we're following the data. And our data shows us, when we look at our dashboard, where we track positivity rates for our students as well as our staff. And looking at that, we have looked at it for the last 3 weeks up until this point, and we have moved. Basically, it's been up from the last 3 weeks, up 47% on the positivity rate for staff. And so that is one of the indicators that we took a close look at, and making sure that we are able to meet the needs of our students in the classroom, making sure that we have staff and students present each day. Everything that we have done is to make sure that our students are in school every day, learning, in-person learning, because we know that in-person learning is most effective. And we want to make sure that our students are in the classroom learning on a daily basis. And everything we have done is to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 and to make sure that our young people are able to be in the classroom on a daily basis. With that said, I am open for questions that you may have at this time.
Superintendent, you said when this policy went into effect that you'd be consulting with the teachers union, I think the administrators union, and the health department. Did all that happen before you made the decision yesterday? Absolutely. I consulted with the Milwaukee Health Department, also with the Milwaukee Teacher Education Association, as well as the Administrative Supervision Council, which is ASC. All of those parties were consulted. And like I said, we have followed the data trends that we have seen. And we have moved to 59.1 as today around in an orange area.
Dr. Superintendent, quick question for you here. MPS told us on Monday that it was going off of a 1.5% positivity rate threshold to move individual school buildings back to a mask mandate. Currently on the website, it shows only one school is above that threshold. So where is the difference here? Did you guys revert from that policy?
And basically what we're looking at when you're tracking the data, we made it clear, and a memo went out to all of our staff and all of our schools, on Thursday of last week, making it totally clear that the indicator that we were using was the 3% threshold. And with that 3% threshold, any school that was 1.5 or greater at a positivity rate would remain masked. And we had one school at that particular time that did not exercise the optional mask policy because of the guidelines that we had set in place previously.
So at what point, Dr. Posley, will you return to mask optional?
And we are looking, and just like I said, following the data, we're constantly looking at the rate of infection. We are constantly looking at the positivity rates within the city. We are also looking at our own district dashboard around that as well to see the growth of what's happening there and trending, how the virus is trending within our district. And so we will be coming back together again on tomorrow to meet, because we're meeting, looking at it on Thursday. Another set of numbers will come out on Thursday, and we will be discussing that and sitting down again to talk about that, as well as to look at any other options that have presented themselves.
Dr. Posley, what's your message to families and parents who find this back and forth kind of confusing?
I'll be the first to say that I understand frustration that parents and staff face here, but I want to make sure that do everything that we can from a mitigating strategy to make sure all of our students, staff, and our community is safe.
Dr. Posley, with following the city's transmission burden criteria for this policy. Was MPS aware that the city was approaching the substantial transmission category prior to yesterday? And did you kind of warn schools that this might happen, that the mask optional policy might not last very long?
Yes, we were informed. We, just like I say, we've had meetings with the Milwaukee Health Department, and we have also been tracking our data along the way and watching trends. We've even been tracking data from 2021 to see what happens. And it showed a spike in this particular month and went down in the month of May. All of that has been taken into consideration, but also I shared earlier, this was something that was made perfectly clear to our school community around case burden and positivity rate. And if it would move to substantial transmission, the district will revert to mandatory mask policy. And also individual schools that had 1.5% greater transmission of the virus would have to go back to mask. So we made that perfectly clear that we'll be transferred and reverting back when there was a substantial increase in the rate of infection.
Dr. Posley, the Milwaukee Health Department sent you a letter on Thursday essentially saying they agree with the CDC that masks should be recommended in schools. In hindsight, do you regret doing away with the mask mandate for one day and creating confusion?
With hindsight, it's just from the beginning, it has been a very difficult journey tracking and working with the virus and making this pandemic, and the frustration has been there. But as looking at one of the things that I said to the community, that on the 18th, if we were in yellow, that we would exercise a mask option policy. On the 18th, it was in yellow. So therefore, that's the reason we went forward with the idea around moving forward to make sure that the optional mask option was out there for our school communities.
Dr. Posley, is there a possibility then again that this is going to be a more day-by-day basis if transmission switches from yellow to orange instead of this week to week? How are you kind of approaching this moving forward? Are you going to have days where masks are optionals for students on a Tuesday and then on Wednesday they're required? How are you going to kind of move forward with that?
No, we're going to be, just like I shared with you, we're tracking the data, looking at what is happening. And we, if there's a situation, we're going to look at tomorrow's data. The data comes out on Tuesdays and on Thursdays. We're going to look at Thursday's data, and we are going to make a decision based on the science and the rate of infection, and looking at the 14-day window around tracking the virus. So those kinds of things that we are going to be pulling back together again to sit down to take a look at all of the guidelines that we have in place, and to make sure if there's anything that needs to be tweaked in the guidelines to make sure that we do just that as well.
Dr. Posley, you mentioned you're also considering the district's own dashboard figures when considering the mask policy. Can you clarify? I mean, the city could be in orange, but if the district's own numbers were low, you might stay optional. Or on the other hand, if the district was in yellow, but the city was in yellow, the district's numbers were higher, you require masks?
Yes, because we are looking and tracking our staff. We need to make sure that we are able to staff our buildings on a daily basis. We want to make sure that we have students in our buildings on a daily basis. So all of those are, added into the decision around this particular piece, but making sure when we're looking at the city in orange or red or whatever the situation may be, we're going to follow the science on that.
So in terms of the district-wide mask policy, are there specific metrics you're looking for on the district's dashboard so families can be aware if the district might be approaching a certain metric regarding triggering a change in the mask policy?
Two of the metrics that we're looking at is the district's dashboard, looking at the rate of infection. And just like I said on the district dashboard, when I look at staff, it jumped up 47% within a week. And looking at tracking that. We also tracking the positivity rate that throughout the city, as well as the case burden rate. So those are the three indicators that we're looking at around the transmission of this virus and making sure on how we render decisions of where we need to go.
So is there a certain rate or burden number that you're looking for that triggers a change in the policy on the district's dashboard?
And our goal, when we made it clear on the 24th, that when we're operating in yellow or, or blue, which is where we all want to be, or even greater, but anything in yellow, we were totally out of with the mask option. But when anything changed, we would be doing it, we would be going back to our mask policy.
So it's possible that tomorrow it goes back to yellow and you'd go back to masks optional again for Friday?
No, the idea is looking at things in a 14-day period.
Okay, so we have masks required now for 14 days, or?
We're going to look at the data again on tomorrow.
Right.
And after we look at the data that comes out on Thursday, and we're going to be making a decision based on that data on Thursday and looking at whether it will be a 14-day period or will we do this for 14 days or what we're going to do around that. But the idea, our goal is to look for yellow and looking at when that when the case burden rate trends back to yellow.
So my understanding is then that you wouldn't have any more sudden changes like this, or?
That's our hope. But like you know, just as well as I know, for the last 18 months or greater, that we've been in a major pandemic and trying to work our way through. And we're trying to follow the science to make the best options for our children, our staff, and our community.
Should students and teachers expect to wear masks for the rest of the school year?
Right now, if the case burden rates continue to climb, or the positivity rate continues to climb, and taking a look at our dashboard and our rate of infection in our schools with our staff and students continue to go on the rise, that's what it would be based off of.
So Dr. Posley, it's not as simple as if the city is in orange, we're going to go masks required. There is some subjectivity in here. And what would you say to parents who are saying, listen, I want to be able to look for myself if we're going to be mask required or mask optional? Your response to that seems to be, well, there's a little bit of soup that we're making here, combining a few different metrics. And what would you say to parents who would criticize that idea as not being very clear and decisive and be able to, the parents cannot look at this themselves?
And I would just share with you everything that we're basing decisions off of. Parents can look at that at any time. The City of Milwaukee COVID-19 statistics is there, and the colors are there, the numbers are there as well. Our dashboard for the district is available to anyone that wants to take a look at that particular dashboard.
All right, thanks everybody.
Recording stopped.